Imagine, checking your fitness tracker, just
Yeah.
looking at your daily logs and realizing you are physically decaying in real time.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your sleep is absolute garbage. Your daily steps are plummeting. Your diet is just completely falling apart.
It's a nightmare.
Right. And when you see that data, do you panic? Like, do you feel guilty? Or do you just take notes?
Yeah.
Welcome back, learners, to the deep dive. I'm thrilled you're here, whether you're prepping for a meeting, commuting, or just insanely curious about how to navigate a really messy week.
It's great to be here. And that scenario you just described, I mean, that is something we all face. We love to build these perfect, rigid architectural blueprints for our week.
Oh, absolutely.
But reality is, it's an unpredictable biological ecosystem.
Exactly, which is why today's deep dive is into a very specific, highly personal document. It's a journal entry published today, August 23rd, 2026, by an individual named Ang, and it's simply titled, This Week in Review, 2026, Week 34. Okay, let's unpack this. Because on the surface, reading someone else's highly detailed weekly review, it might sound like we're just, reading their grocery list.
Right.
But this document, it's a literal masterclass in treating your own life as a laboratory. We're exploring how tracking the micro adjustments in our daily routines, from sleep metrics and diet slips to writing code and even breeding aquarium fish, can act as this incredible blueprint for resilience.
Because tracking this minutia isn't about achieving some robotic, flawless perfection.
Yeah.
It's about treating your life as an observable ecosystem. When you track data, you can make informed, iterative changes. Instead of just throwing your hands up in defeat when things inevitably go wrong.
Right, you don't just give up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Ang's journal gives us this real-time, fascinating look at how a human being navigates physical setbacks and digital burnout by pulling very specific levers.
So let's start with the physical vessel, because week 34 was rough for Ang physically.
It really was.
According to the journal, Ang averaged about 6.7 hours of sleep a night. Now, wait a second. 6.7 hours doesn't sound that apocalyptic on paper.
No.
I mean, I know people who function on less.
We all do.
But Ang notes that the quality was the absolute worst they've experienced all year. We're talking highly fragmented sleep, with some days dropping under 4 hours of just sporadic rest.
Where the real damage happens.
Oh, really?
It completely cascades through the rest of the biological system.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be in bed for 8-9 hours, but if the sleep is fragmented, you're constantly pulling yourself out of the deeper stages of sleep architecture.
Like REM sleep and all that.
Exactly. Slow wave sleep and REM sleep are where muscle repair, cellular regeneration, and cognitive sorting actually happen.
Wow.
If you never hit those restorative stages for a sustained period, your body's entire recovery mechanism is compromised. You wake up biologically exhausted.
And you can really see that exhaustion in the movement data, too. Ang's step count plummeted to a yearly low of 3,407 steps, down from an average of nearly 5,000. Because, understandably, they were just sitting or bedridden for most of the day.
Makes sense.
Eventually, Ang actually took a muscle relaxant supplement over the weekend just to force the body to relax and finally grab some crucial recovery sleep.
Which is a smart intervention when you're that stuck.
Right. But here is the paradox that really stopped me in my tracks.
Oh.
Despite this terrible fragmented sleep, despite dropping the step count so drastically and completely pausing all strength training, Ang experienced little to no sporadic knee pain.
Yes.
Which is something they usually deal with constantly. I don't get it. Aren't we always told motion is lotion? How does doing absolutely nothing cure joint pain?
Well, what's fascinating here is the causality of that pain relief. We have this ingrained belief that we must constantly move or strength train to keep joint pain at bay.
Right, keep the joints lubricated.
Exactly. But Ang credits this sudden lack of knee pain to a very specific combination of interventions. The muscle relaxant supplement, consistent massaging, heat pads, and that total pause in strength training.
Oh, wow.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes chronic joint pain isn't a joint problem at all. It's a symptom of systemic muscle tension and overtraining.
That makes a lot of sense.
The muscles around the knee were likely constantly tight, so by being forced into a sedentary state and chemically relaxing the muscles to finally sleep, Ang inadvertently gave those knee joints the absolute profound rest they desperately needed.
It's like a forced reset.
It really is.
But I have to push back a bit because looking at those numbers, like a massive drop in steps, terrible sleep quality, it reminds me of checking your bank account after a wildly expensive vacation.
Oh yeah, the dread.
It is physically painful to look at the damage. When a metric like your step count drops that drastically and you're just staring at a spreadsheet of your own physical decline, doesn't tracking it just become incredibly demotivating? Like, why even log it?
For a lot of people, it would be deeply demotivating. And that's exactly why Eng's psychological approach here is so critical to highlight.
Okay.
Eng specifically mentions adopting a stoic approach. They write that despite tracking walking steps for what they call all the moons, they remain completely indifferent to the poor results.
Wow.
Eng describes acting merely as an external observant of the data.
An external observant. I love that phrasing.
It's a profound psychological shift. Think about it. Instead of assigning emotional guilt to the number,
Right.
instead of saying, I'm a lazy failure because I only walked 3,400 steps today,
Yeah.
Eng simply looks at the dashboard and says, the system is currently compromised. Adjustments are required.
So the data just loses all of its emotional weight.
Exactly. It just becomes a navigational coordinate.
So when physical movement is severely restricted, like when you're stuck in bed or trapped on the couch, you lose the ability to burn off excess energy. The output engine is basically turned off. That means your dietary intake and digestion become the absolute primary levers you have left to control your physical homeostasis.
Precisely. If you can't control the output, you have to meticulously manage the input fuel.
And the journal shows Eng doing exactly that, though it wasn't perfect. Eng notes that their weight crept up slightly, from 69.96 kilograms to 70.11 kilograms.
A tiny bump.
Right. Eng realizes, okay, this is probably just water weight fluctuation, but still flags it as a trend to watch. But let's get into the actual diet, because Eng normally runs a really tight ship.
They do.
They aim for what they call a 2-to-1 diet. That's 2 parts plants, 2 parts protein, 1 part carbohydrates, all paired with intermittent fasting. Specifically a 168 and a 5-2 protocol. Can you break down why that specific combination is so potent?
Absolutely. So the fasting protocol is first. 168 means fasting for 16 hours and eating your meals within an 8-hour window every day. The 52 usually refers to eating normally for 5 days a week and severely restricting calories, often to around 500 or 600 for 2 non-consecutive days.
Oh, wow. That sounds intense.
It is a rigorous systemic approach designed to optimize insulin sensitivity and trigger autophagy, which is basically the body's cellular cleanup process.
Right.
And that 2-21 ratio, heavy on plants and protein, light on carbs, is specifically designed to keep blood sugar stable. By front-loading fiber and amino acids before you introduce carbohydrates, you basically blunt the glycemic spike.
But during this bedridden week, Eng admits that the pristine 2-21 ratio slipped. It shifted toward a 1-or-12 ratio.
Right.
1 part plants, 1 part protein, 2 parts carbs. They ended up eating a lot more outside food, even though they managed to keep some core staples going, like regular oatmeal, soft-boiled eggs, cooked salads, and miso noodle soup with vegetables. And Eng is already planning the course correction, aiming for 70% fullness at meals, planning to get 2 to 3 servings of sardines or fish weekly, and diving into research on the gut microbiome. But why the slip to 112 in the first place? Is it just a lack of willpower when you're sick?
Not at all, and it's so important we don't frame it as a willpower failure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that shift from 221 to 112 is a hardwired physiological response to sleep deprivation. When you're running on less than 4 hours of fragmented sleep, your hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin, go completely haywire.
Oh, I hate that feeling.
Your body desperately craves quick, accessible energy to keep you functioning, and biologically, the fastest energy source is carbohydrates. Your brain is literally screaming at you to consume carbs just to stay awake.
That makes so much sense. But here's the detail in the journal that made me literally laugh out loud.
Oh, yeah.
Eng mentions trying to compensate for this dietary slip by taking what they call balanced supplements. But upon closer inspection of the label, Eng realizes these health supplements are actually packed with high sugary contents.
Oh, classic.
So what does this all mean? Isn't it incredibly ironic and honestly a bit infuriating that the very products the health industry sells us to fix a dietary slip are actually just sneaking more sugar into our systems when we're at our most vulnerable?
It's highly ironic. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it highlights the absolute necessity of critical thinking in the wellness space.
Yeah.
The wellness industry often relies heavily on the halo effect of the word supplement. We subconsciously assume that because something is packaged as a health aid, in a bottle with a green leaf on it,
Right. It must be healthy.
it somehow operates outside the basic rules of human nutrition. But your biology doesn't care about marketing labels. If a supplement is bound with sugary syrups to make it taste good, it's going to spike your blood glucose just like a piece of candy would.
Which completely ruins the fast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Completely undermining a metabolic practice like intermittent fasting. Eng's observation proves you cannot outsource your health to a label. You have to remain that external observant of every single thing you ingest.
And to maintain that mental discipline, Eng leans heavily on meditation. The journal details a continued practice despite the chaos. 3 steps of sitting meditation lasting 1, 2, and 3 minutes. Mental noting, even walking meditation done while doing gardening chores like raking leaves. But I feel like doing a 1-minute meditation sounds almost too short to be useful. Does that actually do anything?
It absolutely does, especially in a crisis. When the body is sick, it feels like a betrayal.
Yeah.
You feel entirely out of control.
Yeah, it's true.
A 1-minute meditation isn't about achieving enlightenment. It's about reestablishing a micro moment of agency. It's proving to yourself that for 60 seconds, you can command your own attention.
That's a powerful way to look at it. But so when the digital world pushes back, or when the physical body is compromised, where does all that mental energy go?
Right.
Because Eng is clearly someone with a massive need for intellectual output. Even while sick, Eng is writing 3 posts daily, reading 5 to 10 minutes a day, though the fiction reading is sporadic. Curiously, a specific book on the 3 highs remains completely untouched.
Ah, yes, the 3 highs. Or San Gao.
Right.
That refers to high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and high blood lipids. It's a very practical health topic.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating that a book focused on systemic health conditions sits unread on the desk while Eng is actively managing their own physiological crisis. It shows that in the moment of stress, theoretical learning takes a backseat to practical lived experience.
Exactly. You're just trying to survive the day. But the real friction, the real wall Eng hits this week happens when they log onto the computer.
There we go.
Eng has a goal of making daily PRs, pull requests, basically proposing code changes to open source coding projects. And the languages listed here are heavy hitters. We're talking Go, Python, Elixir, Erlang, Rust, and Haskell.
That is a list.
Eng is maintaining some personal Haskell projects, but mentions wanting to scratch an itch by moving to Golang or maybe building Android mobile apps. Can we just pause and appreciate that list for a second?
It's an incredibly demanding cognitive load.
Right. I mean, jumping from Haskell, which is this deeply abstract, purely functional language, to something like Rust, which is obsessed with memory safety at the systems level, or Go, which is all about concurrency. That is not a casual hobby.
Right.
That's like jumping between speaking Mandarin, Russian, and Arabic in the same afternoon. It requires a massive amount of mental context switching.
It does. It requires a high degree of precision and problem solving.
Yeah.
But what happens when Eng goes out into the open source community to apply those skills?
This is where it gets dark. Eng goes randomly hopping through GitHub repositories looking for interesting projects to contribute to, and they hit a wall. Eng explicitly writes this in the journal.
Okay.
GitHub these days are the dumping ground for AI-generated projects.
That is a staggering observation, and it marks a profound shift in the digital landscape of 2026.
It really is. To put this in perspective, for anyone who isn't spending their weekends browsing code repositories, looking for a project on GitHub today sounds like going thrifting in a vintage store you used to love.
Yeah.
But you walk in and it's suddenly been flooded with cheap, identical fast fashion. You used to dig through the racks and find these brilliant, hand-stitched, uniquely human pieces of code.
Right. Someone's weird passion project.
Exactly. A project that solved a really niche problem and had personality. Now you're just sifting through thousands of synthetic algorithmic copies generated by a prompt.
It's exhausting.
They have no soul, no real utility, and it completely ruins the thrill of the hunt.
That is a perfect analogy. The thrift store has been flooded with synthetic fabric. And if we unpack why this causes so much burnout, it's about a broader societal fatigue.
Yeah.
Open source communities like GitHub weren't just utility platforms. They were built on human collaboration. They thrived on the joy of intellectual discovery, of seeing how another human brain solved a puzzle.
Right.
When our digital spaces become cluttered with automated, low-effort boilerplate code generated by large language models, the signal-to-noise ratio completely collapses.
You just can't find the good stuff anymore.
Exactly. The joy diminishes because you're no longer connecting with another human mind. You're just interacting with digital exhaust. It creates a profound sense of isolation.
So when the digital world pushes back like that, Aang doesn't just sit there. The energy has to go somewhere, and Aang redirects that massive analytical engine entirely into the physical world. The journal outlines an absolute explosion of hyperphysical, controllable analog hobbies.
The pivot from the digital to the tangible is striking. It's a search for permanence.
Right, let's look at what Aang is actually doing. In the home and garden, Aang is decluttering one item per day. They are removing weeds in the front yard. They are planning to grout the front yard balcony tile, installing curtains,
Wow.
building a plant rack, and germinating purchased seeds across 4 entirely new workspaces. This isn't casual gardening. This is a highly structured operation.
Notice the mechanics of these activities. Grouting a balcony tile, germinating seeds across multiple controlled environments. When you write code today, it feels ephemeral. It gets lost in an ocean of AI noise.
Yeah, you can't hold it.
Right. But when you mix grout, apply it to a tile, and it cures, it hardens. It is permanent. It is the anti-software.
I love that, the anti-software.
And germinating seeds requires controlling moisture, light, and soil temperature. It requires physical manipulation of matter that results in undeniable biological proof of your effort.
And it goes way beyond plants. Aang is deep into fish keeping.
Oh, yeah.
They are managing what they call a yellow-blue rack, installing LED lights and sponge filters, moving an extra pond from the front yard to the backyard balcony, and actively tweaking the water environment to induce breeding among dwarf cichlids.
That is not easy.
No. For anyone who doesn't know, how hard is it to breed a fish like a dwarf cichlid?
It is incredibly meticulous. You don't just put 2 fish in a bowl. Dwarf cichlids are highly sensitive to their water parameters.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to play God with the chemistry. You are constantly monitoring the nitrogen cycle, managing the exact pH levels, adjusting the water hardness, and dialing in the temperature just to signal to the fish that the environment is safe enough for reproduction.
Wow.
It's essentially running a biological reactor in your living room.
Which is wild, because here's where it gets really interesting. Look at the overlap in the methodology here. Aang is applying the exact same meticulous systemic tracking to breeding these fish and germinating these seeds as they do to their own health.
Right.
The 221 diet and the 6.7 hours of sleep are tracked with the exact same intensity as the LED light installation and the water pH tweaks needed to make cichlids lay eggs. It is the exact same analytical brain, just pointed at literal dirt and water instead of a computer screen.
You've hit on the unifying theory of Aang's entire week.
Yeah.
Whether they are tracking their own gut microbiome, refactoring complex Haskell code, or tweaking the temperature for a cichlid, Aang is fundamentally a systems thinker. But why pivot so hard into the dirt and the water right now? Because, as we established, the digital systems are polluted. These analog activities are deliberately chosen because they provide a tangible, immediate, honest feedback loop.
The code might be fake, but the fish are real.
Exactly. The fish either breed or they don't. The seed sprouts or it rots. There is no AI hallucination in a fish tank. It grounds you in reality.
It is like Aang is building these little controllable sanctuaries.
That's a great way to put it.
The body is an ecosystem you can tweak with sleep and sardines. The garden is an ecosystem you can tweak with water and weed removal. The fish tank is an ecosystem you can tweak with sponge filters.
Right.
When the outside world, whether that's a brutal physical illness or a ruined digital platform full of AI junk, feels entirely out of control, you just shrink your focus to the ecosystems you can actually manage.
Exactly. And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway for anyone listening to this deep dive. Tracking your life, your sleep debt, your diet slips, your hobbies. It's not about punishing yourself for failing to meet an arbitrary goal.
No.
It is about understanding the deep interconnectedness of your own life. When you view your week as a holistic, observable ecosystem, you realize that a drop in your step count isn't a moral failure.
It's just a number.
It's just a data point. It's a signal requiring a gentle tweak somewhere else in the system.
You become the external observant of your own life. You take that stoic approach.
Right.
You see the jagged lines of a tough week on your tracker, but instead of panicking, you just get to work adjusting the inputs. You take the muscle relaxant, you switch up your diet, you check the sugar content on your supplements, and you keep moving forward. You control what you can.
It is the ultimate form of resilience. We survive and adapt by observing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into week 34, we promise to leave you with a final thought, something to chew on as you evaluate your own routines.
This raises an important question, especially looking at Aang's intense retreat away from the polluted code repositories and into the garden and the fish room. If our digital spaces continue to become synthetic dumping grounds, where code, art, and even conversation are largely generated by AI, will human connection itself eventually require a physical analog passport?
Oh, wow.
Meaning, in the future, will we only truly trust the authenticity of the people we meet and the work we see in the physical dirt of the garden or at the local fish store?
Wow. Will analog reality become the only verifiable truth we have left? That's a fascinating thought. So next time you look at your calendar, don't just see the rigid little boxes. Look at the messy, beautiful ecosystem hiding underneath them and ask yourself what kind of tangible feedback loops you are building today. Thanks for diving deep with us, learners. We'll catch you next time.